Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Friday, February the 15th. Don't know about you, but I'm glad Friday's finally here. It's been a really good trading day today, though. There were lots of good setups. Uh, this sell-off, not what's not certain what actually prompted this thing to finally sell off like this, but either way, it it doesn't matter. You should have been able to find this setup right here and this setup. Uh, you should have had this trend line in here, and that would have easily given you this one, and then you had the range here, and this is just a little failed break. But we'll talk about each trade. I wasn't really expecting this big sell-off, but that's exactly why we try to hold a runner, because you never know when you're going to catch a trade like this right here. And, it looked like prices were fixing to rocket and go higher, and then suddenly they reverse and just boom, it's off to the races to the downside. So you may even still be short. I've exited. I've been done for a little while. But you just really couldn't resist this setup right here. And like I said, I didn't expect it to go here. I actually had this trend channel move down to here at this point. You can see it's been trying to get back in that channel. So is this just an overshoot? It looks like it, because this looks like a failed break lower possibly down here. But what I think we have is, notice the ranges here. Generally a range it's there'll be it's very similar to a measured move on a measured leg, and there's your range. You measure that and you see where your next range goes to, and that's exactly there. And let's just see where that would go for the next range. We kind of overshot that a little bit, so it's hard to say, but this should have been your target once we broke out of this and turned down. Right down in here, it'd be a measured. Generally, when you're in a range like this and it breaks and goes lower, you look for the next resistance to be a similar size, and if it went higher, you would have looked for a similar high, size up here. So, but that's what we're looking at. I'm not sure if this is a channel here or not, or if we've got a new trend working down. It's just hard to say at this point, but I was a little surprised we went this low. But that's just a really strong sell-off, and whether or not some kind of news came out or something, I don't know. I haven't even paid any attention to that. But there wasn't any scheduled news item that I had in mind, but there could have been something that, still doesn't mean there was some kind of breaking news or something. And like I said, I haven't looked to see. I don't really care. It doesn't matter anyway. If it wasn't scheduled, you would have known about it. And you still don't know how the news is going to affect the market. The main thing is if you caught it and you were part of it, you ride it as far as you can. And then the news, you really don't know if it was news or related or till after the fact. So, and again, it doesn't really matter at that point. All it matters is were you in that trade and did you trade it down? So, but anyway, let's talk about each trade. There was a setup right here. This is really a failed second entry short that turned into a nice long opportunity coming off the EMA. Notice how we're starting to close above the EMA there. That's what you want to see. And so then you should have been, what I would have really been looking for was a leg at least like this one right here. And you see that leg right there, and then you run that up, and you see that's exactly where we got to before we sold off. We still went higher. It looks like there's probably 3 legs in there, and you see there's the 3rd leg, and it's about the same size. And then there's the 4th leg, and it's about the same size. This is just and actually this trend line might have been right here, and there's your break, and you move to a new high, and then you sold off. But I think a lot of people were looking at that as the trend line as well, because we broke it and then we tried another retest, and then that's when the downtrends really started. So, but either way, nice opportunity to enter here. No big runners or anything. Easy scalp though. And your next opportunity was to enter here, and notice this, a 2-legged correction. We overshot it up here, and I wanted to. I'll be honest with you, because it broke above this high and because it overshot what I thought was a trend channel there, I wanted to uh, short this, but I just didn't think it was worthwhile. It's you really want to wait to a second entry on that, and the second entry didn't come to here, and then you're really close to these lows, the EMA and this, and the trend line, and so it was better to wait on a long. So you notice that's 2 legs back. So this is a nice second entry long, a nice reversal bar, 2 matching lows. I tried to get long right here, but didn't get filled, so I had to get in right here. And again, you're looking for it to come up here and test this high. And we really hadn't had a trend line break in my eyes yet, because I didn't really feel like that was the trend channel. I felt like this was it. And so I tried to hold on for a little more, but when we went into all this and started doing this, I just went ahead and exited this one. And actually this should have been red right here. I don't know how I ended up with well, let's just do this. And you might have gotten fooled here. You might have wanted to go long right here, but there's too many overlapping bars right here, and we're moving down after a failed break above these previous highs up here. But because we hadn't had a trend line break, you might have been thinking long, but it was better to wait and see if we didn't come back down here and test these lows again, because we never really came back and tested that. But if you got trapped here, when this turned, when this broke higher right here, that's a nice trap. And when it turns lower, you want to go short right there. And that was an easy scalp, nothing more, because then all we did was come down and test these lows right across here. And this is really just kind of a failed break lower below that reversed. And notice it went down, went up, went back down. And I actually got long right here on a limit order, so I got 1 tick from the low on that one. But if not, you should have gone long right here, because now you got kind of a trading range here. And it's a failed break lower that reverses, and notice how that opened on its very low and closed on its very high. And if you didn't go long there, you definitely should have here, because then we came back and tested that support, and notice how it held to the tick and then turned up. So you could have even gone long right there. It starts to get more dangerous here because you're getting so much further away, and you got to use a bigger stop. You're getting closer to the EMA, and notice how it stalled right in there before it went higher. And by getting long right here, it worked out pretty good for me, because I was able to scalp out and they didn't come right back and get my runner. In addition, it allows me to scalp out before I ever get back to the EMA as well, because even if prices are going to get through the EMA, it's very rarely that they will shoot straight through it. You're almost always going to get some resistance there. Notice coming down, we got some resistance there, and then it got through. And then going back, it's same thing. And then even coming down through here, we broke through it, but we came back and tested it. And so here's another chance. Even though we came from below, we got resistance right there, and then finally got above it. And there's actually a possibility of a long right here that you might have considered as well, because this is really kind of a failed second entry. It's a double bottom right there. So I probably should have marked that one. I didn't, because it's kind of in the middle of this no man's land in here, and I just didn't feel comfortable taking it. And I'm glad I didn't, because that kept me alert to this trade right here, and we were really close to this possible trend line. So that was another reason maybe not to take that trade. But I'm getting ahead of myself there. But you had a long here, and you come up here and you check out this little double top with a trap. And you got this nice reversal bar, great place to go long. And really what I usually do on a reversal bar like this, once prices break lower, I'll drop a limit order here, or maybe even halfway back in the bar. You got to be careful, because you may not get filled if you get too greedy. And a lot of times these will take off. But by dropping a limit order there, a tick may not seem very important, but sometimes it is that one tick might be the difference between a loser and a winning trade. And so that's the way I usually try to handle these, especially if there's a little more overlap. But because that's a trap and there's a double top, and that's a retest of that breakout area, and really I believe that's the stronger resistance right there. Notice how we ticked one tick higher, made that double top and reversed. I like it best when it goes out the other side before closing. When it closes like that, a lot of times it's going to snap back, and it did. It just didn't snap back. It just came back and tested and then turned down again. So nice place to get long, get short. Again, if you could use a limit order after, wait for it to tick lower and then drop your limit order to either right there at the break point or a tick or so back into it, depending on how big this bar is. And that usually will give you a better entry and a tighter stop as well, because you would have wanted your stop a tick or two right above this little double top here. But it never really threatened, challenged the entry, and it was off to the races down. It's not real fast. It's chopping down, and you probably would have considered exiting here, but if you didn't, you could have ridden this all the way down. But even if you exited here, and you really should have had this line down here by that point, or maybe there, even there. That looks like it's the better place. But and notice that's a perfect test of this little break higher here, and that's what the market does. It's always retesting previous places on the way up or the way down, and not that that's real important, but that's a lot of times that's where they come back to get the break-even stops from anybody that entered on that big move there, and then they reverse it again. And but you got a nice shot at a breakout pullback short. This is a nice looking breakout pullback short. You might have considered going long here, but if you did, as soon as that ended as a doji right there near the EMA, you probably want to exit because there's not much room there. And that's another thing. If this would have been, I actually tried to get long with a limit order there, but it couldn't get filled, so it went on up. And again, it turns down. I wouldn't have probably gone short below that doji on a breakout pullback short coming out of a range as choppy and as rangy as it's been lately. But when you went back and tested that line to the tick and this closed on its low, that's a great place to get short, thinking that you'll probably get another leg down similar to that one. And we didn't quite get that. I was really looking for us to test this again, and we couldn't quite get there. And notice this little double bottom right here. This is just similar to this pattern right here, just in reversal. It's just almost the exact same pattern in reversal. And notice you had a doji afterwards, a little doji. That's a little pullback retest, and then off it goes. And so again, drop a limit order right there, and if you dropped it right here, you probably didn't get filled, and you can see that. And that's why sometimes these work better off the low end than they do the high end. And also there was a perfect measured move from this range to down here, and nice place to go long. Runners were easily safe. You ride this all the way back up to the top and test that trend line, and you might have exited on the retest right here on that double top. That would have been a good place to exit. And that would have saved you maybe one or two ticks, and that's it. And but coming off that trend line, then there's another short right there, and this was my last trade of the day, and I rode this all the way down to these lows and exited right there. And look, I gave up maybe 2-3 points, so I probably should have held on and kept going. But that's why we hold runners, and and that's why we try to hang on to them and not exit when the market starts trending. And this is a nice trend. And really what you've probably got, this is probably one leg here. And if you look where your target was, it was right in here on your next leg. Let's just see what this leg looks like if you measure that one. And then measure that one. You see you way overshot that, but that's where the first target was. And so there were a lot of people looking at that. And that's why we probably bounced right there when we did. And notice all it did was come back. And plus we broke through that possible trend line, and we, you come back and you test it and it turns down. So there really was another short there. I wouldn't have probably taken that because it didn't get back to the EMA, and that's a little risky. This one would have been either one of these would have been better. And by this time, now you've got a failed break lower here. So, but that's what I saw for today. Really good trading day. Lots of good entries. Um, Not a whole lot of fake outs really that you usually get. This was all standard price action stuff. You got to find these channels, and you generally want to fade the breaks. And when you fade one like this and it doesn't go where you're thinking it's going to go, because usually when they take off, see how quickly this one took off, and you were out of that scalp relatively easy. Here's another one that broke below these lows, and look how it kind of took off. But notice this one right here, it didn't really take off. It was really struggling to go higher, and that's a sign that, you might better exit. And a lot of times you'll exit and it'll just rocket off like a rocket, but better to be safe. Don't be greedy. Take what it'll give you and look for the next entry. And then you got a nice short on the breakout pullback short, and you made it. Now that one, and see how that one took off. And then notice how this one took off. It's when you get in them and they don't take off that you got to be suspect of them, So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. I hope you had a good trading week. It's been a pretty good week. It's been a little slow. Some days were better than others this week, but today was a really good day for a Friday. A lot of times on Friday about lunchtime, you go into something like this right here, and it doesn't go more than a couple of points, and it just stays stuck in there. And we may be doing that right here now. But overall, it was a fairly good day with some really good setups. So I hope you had a good trading day. I hope your week was a good week. If it wasn't, keep studying. And make sure, I don't say this enough probably, but make sure that the ideal way to do this is just get on the simulator and trade every day. Don't question it. Don't just try to trade properly. Try to trade based on what you're learning. But don't worry if you get it right or not. Just trade it and do what you're supposed to do. And then at the end of the day, make sure you sit here and you study all your trades. Go back and study if these were my actual, if every one of these was an actual trade, I got to go back and study it. If it worked, I figured out why it worked. If it failed, I got to look and see why it failed. And then and then once I'm done with that, I just want to sit here and just follow the price action and look and just see what's going on and look for any other trades that I might notice that I didn't see during the trading, or trades, and then compare your work to mine to make sure you're reading it right. See if you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing, and you may see something I don't see, or you may like something I don't like. Like I said, there's a nice long right there. That's a double bottom at the EMA. And there's really enough room to scalp out there, I do believe. It's really close, but still, that's a hard one to ignore. 518, and you see it got just enough to scalp out. And what I probably would have done there was dropped a limit order, and I would have got left on that trade if I'd have tried to take it. So, but it was just because I don't mark a trade doesn't mean. What I try to do is mark all the trades that fit our criteria that are not too aggressive. And so what you want to do is try to do the same thing. But there are more aggressive trades. And but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.